Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Jackson. My name is Justin. I'm very excited to be here this morning and glad that you're with us, regardless of whether you are new to our congregation, whether you've been here for a long time, or whether you are just happening by us on the web. Thank you so much for being here. We are located in the heart of Jackson, Mississippi, on West Street, and we are glad to be here and working to be a great part of this neighborhood. We thank you so much for being here. And if you don't know anything about Unitarian Universalism, what I always say is Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal faith. It's not creedal. In that, we don't tell you what to believe, but we do have a covenant that brings us together that helps us with how we treat each other. Basically, our relationships are the center part of our faith. In those being the center part of our faith, we put that first, and we make sure that when we interact together, we are not harming one another, or we're doing our best not to. So our goal to be part of relationship is what defines us as Unitarian Universalists. Today is a very special service. We will be doing some new member work, and we've, for the last 4 weeks, been hosting Starting Point, which is sort of like a new member, or just maybe an update for Unitarian Universalism if you're new to it. I know I sat in on multiple episodes. David behind the table did. Stacy sat in and was there for 4 episodes. And our past president, Eric Wood, was also there. We had some visitors during that time, and we all took place in the class. It was something we all shared together, and we will continue doing it. And I hope that you will join us next time, whether you're new to the church or whether you've been here for a long time. So today, as we think about membership, we will have an opportunity to recognize 2 people who completed the task or completed the class and are now full members in good standing with the congregation here in Jackson. And as we do this, I will light a chalice before we get started. And our chalice is words from Cynthia Landrum, saying, as we kindle this flame, may it spark in each of us connection and commitment to this living tradition and to each other. At this time, we will begin our new member service, and I'll say, we are gathered here to welcome into membership Patrick and Evelyn Moore to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Jackson in the larger community of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Patrick and Evelyn, you are joining a deep tradition. People have gathered with this church for 70 years, seeking a higher purpose and a deeper life than they could find alone. We are grateful today for each of you, you who have found your way here, and that you have decided to make a commitment to our faith community. We hope as a member of this church, you will allow yourselves to know and be known, to minister and be ministered to love and to be loved by this congregation. We never really know what combination of faith and friendship and good luck it is that brings certain people together in this world for any purpose. But we believe the membership in the church calls each of us to celebrate the faith that has drawn us together. And with regard, each one of us a spiritual friend and potential teacher, even of occasional hard lessons. The relationships we form in our church are based on the needs of the soul, needs that render each of us as vulnerable and therefore reliant on each other's grace and goodness and generosity of spirit. As members of this church, we pledge to be guardians of each other's spirits, to respect the ultimate privacy of each one's human struggle, and to believe in each one's inherent dignity. Standing on the shoulders of the visionaries, freedom fighters, and radical liberal theologians who came before us, we carry on the tradition of our free religion with integrity and love. We uphold the values of Unitarian Universalism, of individual conscience and responsibility to one another through the care for one another in the world, sharing our gifts of time, talent, and treasure in our individual and collective search for truth and meaning. We welcome you to this community with open hearts. In a moment, I'm going to call forward Patrick and Evelyn, and then I'm also going to call forward, representing the congregation in the liturgy, Stacy Callender. I will note many years ago it was that Stacy Callender stood before this congregation and welcomed me as a new member. So it is my honor to call those folk forward now.
We enter this faith with hope and possibility in our hearts, pledging to participate in and support the ministries of this church. We covenant to remain true to the spirit of love that flows through this church and guide us. We seek your welcome as we join you in this faith.
And as a representative of the congregation that I know would be speaking in unison if we were together, we welcome you as once we were welcomed ourselves. We seek to be open and inclusive, respecting your inherent dignity, your ideas, and your vision, in times when it's easy and in times when it's difficult. We seek to be supportive, not only when you reach out in courage to us, but also when you need us to reach out to you. In return, we ask that you recognize our humanity. We will not always live up to our ideals. And when we fall short, we invite you to stay in relationship with us and help us more fully bring alive the spirit of love. We welcome you as an equal member of this congregation, of this faith, and of our shared spiritual journey.
Thank you so much for being here to be with us this morning. And thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, Patrick, for all the work that you've put forward through this process. And as we move into talking about what churches call the collection or the offering, I think about those words. offering. Religion is based on, well, part of religion is based on sacrifice. From the days of old when people brought their animals to sacrifice, the money that we put forward that uses to support this congregation, the time that we utilize in the way that we give our treasure, our hope, and our love to each other is all part of the sacrifice that helps not just sustain this church, but sustains each one of us as we struggle. It's times like this morning when we bring in 2 new members of the congregation that I think of members who have left the congregation in the years past, having left the city, having left the state. And as we bring in new members, we are not just replacing those old members. We're not just replacing members like David and Susan Voisin. They are irreplaceable. We are hoping that Evelyn and Patrick bring something brand new that we have not seen before. It is a sad day for us as well, as I recognize the offering that has been brought by Susan and David Voisin for the years that they've been a member of this congregation. To you two who will be moving forward, I lift my prayers, I lift my hopes, and I ask that you enjoy your time, that you find a place to give to that community how you so openly gave to ours. And I hope that you continue always to move forward as Unitarian Universalists, knowing that there is a place in Jackson, Mississippi that will always hold you in love. David and Susan, thank you so much for the lives that you gave us. And Godspeed. And as we think of the offering, I think of all those people that have gone on before us. I think of the people that founded the church some 70 years ago who have moved on, the ministers that have been here in the past, and all the members that have given their time, their talent, and their treasure, and sometimes members who have learned new talents so that they can give more to the congregation. Being a member of a faith community is more than just filling out a paper or showing up on Sunday morning. Being a member of a faith community is forming a community. So we take this opportunity to facilitate one part of that thing that we need all members to help with. Our collection, our offering that we bring before each other. We ask that if you have the opportunity, that if you've made your pledge, that you go to uujackson.org and you go to the PayPal link, that you send a letter or an email, or I'm sorry, that you send it by check to the congregation here in West Street. All that information will be added in the chat by one who has added to his talents to benefit us today, David Morgan. He will be adding all that information in the chat, and I ask as Annabelle Morgan plays for us our offertory song that you give as you are called to do so. But I'm still going to do it. Are we on now? I am so sorry for that confusion. I do hope you'll stay with me for a moment. It has never worked right twice the same way. So thank you so much for working with us during this time. As I said, and this is what I wanted to start by saying, I seldom give trigger warnings to my sermons. I'm giving one today because I will be talking in the very beginning about my pets and about about putting them down and about their death. I know that in this congregation we are very connected to our animals, and I do want to give you warning that I am going that direction in the very beginning of this script. So bear with me, and if you need to take care of yourself in some way, shape, or form, I ask that you do that as well. Nearing the end of 2020, such a wonderful year 2020 was, we had to put 2 dogs down. The first was Princess, a dog we adopted when her owner, my aunt, died. The other was Gizmo, the dog my wife got years ago when she needed a best friend. Princess was old and blind. She struggled to get outside, and the accidents in the house were causing issues for her and for us. Then the seizures started. I knew what that meant. My little lady was not going to make it. With Gizmo, it was different. He was younger, and we thought he was completely healthy when he just randomly started having accidents in the house. After multiple rounds of antibiotics, he stopped eating, and then he stopped going to the bathroom. Well trained by my stepdaughter, he still went out and went through the motions to show us that he was willing to do that. We noticed constantly that he was gritting his teeth. But I did not expect the last time we took him to the vet to be the last time we took him to the vet. In a heartbreaking call from our veterinarian, hoping that I could bring him home for a month, a week, maybe a day, or just an hour, I asked in tears, how much pain is my dog in? I didn't realize how much pain he was in because of his commitment to us, how well he'd become at masking it. I knew he would fight every moment that he could, sitting with my wife or my stepdaughters, or even following me to the mailbox to get the mail. With Princess, as heartbreaking as it was, we were prepared. With Gizzy, we were not. The thing is, there is a commitment to owning a pet that is different than any other commitment we will ever make in our lives. Because owning a pet brings us joy, and because bringing us joy brings our pets joy. They want us to be happy. Especially dogs that look up to us with big eyes filled with loyalty, trusting that we will do them no harm. But I learned a long time ago that animals do not understand time like we mere mortals do. The moment is all that exists for most animals. Sure, they remember the history at some level. There's muscle memory, and they know who we are by smell, but when they're in pain now, they're in pain for what feels like an eternity. The moment is primary for animals. I love how Robert Burns puts it in my favorite poem that I look for every opportunity to say to a mouse. He says this, "Still thou art blessed compared with me. The present only toucheth thee, but oh, a backward cast my eye on prospects drear, and forward though I cannot see, I guess in fear." which is basically to this mouse, he says, "You're blessed compared with me. The present only touches thee. But I look to my past that's dreary. And even though I can't see the future, that past makes me afraid." The moment is most important to our pets, and when they are in pain, especially a pain that cannot go away, we begin to talk about their quality of life. Gizzy may have been able to last a few more excruciating days before he slowly starved to death. But those days would be a lifetime for him and a selfish demand for me. So I asked the veterinarian through a lump in my throat because I knew the answer. "How much pain is my dog in?" Because I needed to bring him home for a week, for a day, for an hour to say goodbye. I needed it, and he suffered. My vet answered very simply, "A lot." We never brought him home. We didn't meet until that afternoon when we met to fulfill the final part of our covenant. Because when we bring them home, we make a covenant with them. Regardless of the messes on the floor, the incessant barking when someone comes to the door, or even when they get in the way and get underfoot and chew my Carmex tubes to pieces. We'd still prefer they be there. We covenant that their bowl will have food, and they will get belly rubs when they're needed, and we will not turn them out. And for that simple covenant, we get years of love and hope simply from the look in their eyes. But there is that other part of their covenant, or our covenant to them, our commitment. There is the end of the covenant, the conclusion of it, when they are in pain, when there are more bad days than good days, when we truly have to love them in the most painful way possible, and we have to make a decision that even if it were in their power, they would not make. We have to decide at the end what is best. It is the price we pay. At least it's the one we agree to, even if silently when they touch our lives the first time. We take responsibility for their needs. After Gizzy, we waited a few months before reaching out again. It was important for me, it was important for my wife, for us to feel what was happening. In fact, both of our children asked me if they should just buy us a puppy. I said, "Just wait. We'll be ready." Knowing that one pet never replaces another. Knowing that each pet, each friend is different, I will again choose to make that commitment. The covenant of a pet owner. So when we were ready, we brought home Delta Dawn. I bought her a collar with roses on it. But she is no replacement for either of the two we lost. She is her own, she is new, and she is loved in a different way. And the covenant stands. She will have food in her bowl, all the belly rubs she needs, and we will not turn her out. And we will be with her on that day in the years to come. I'm going to shift gears very quickly. Preparation is a difficult thing, especially when we'd rather just rush out and start something new. The Gospel of Luke says that Jesus was about 30 years old when he started his ministry. None of the books say much about his youth, only that he was a troublemaker once when he was 12 years old. The stories in the four Gospels tend to be similar, but then they don't all agree. And that's how we said it during my theological education. We thought of the Gospels as four people with different viewpoints that don't always agree. But there are similarities. See, John is baptizing in the river. Jesus comes and is baptized. Something special happens with a dove. Someone speaks from the sky. Then Jesus goes to the wilderness and fasts for 40 days and 40 nights, where he is confronted by the devil. After he comes back, and while doing so, he calls on other people, his disciples, while he is walking home. The next thing that happens is he goes to this wedding in Cana of Galilee, and only at the request of his mother performs what is known in his first miracle by turning water into wine. All of this even before he began doing anything in public. 3 years later, he would be wrongfully accused and put to death by the state. While I was going to college and seminary, wishing I could move quicker into the service of ministry, I was often reminded by my professors that Jesus spent 30 years preparing for 3 years of ministry. See, in this world, we can access information very quickly. We're taught to move fast, to be quick. We take proverbs like, the early bird catches the worm, which is really just about waking up early, but interpret it to mean we should move fast and quick. There's this impression in the world that we must do it as quickly as possible so that we can stake our shares and our profits early in this society, because you have to have money to make money in this society, or so I'm told. And maybe this makes sense economically. I don't know, but it doesn't make sense for a church. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we should ignore the immediate help we can provide, but when it comes to making a lasting impression, maybe some preparation is helpful. I don't think it will take us 30 years, but I will say this. Jesus was baptized, went to the desert to prepare emotionally for 40 days, and the first thing he did when he came back was create a board of trustees. Because change takes willingness, time, and help. And oddly enough, the first miracle he does in one of the stories is a favor, which makes me wonder what he did during his childhood that his mom knew he could fix this problem. Obviously, he wasn't twiddling his thumbs, but we just don't know. I remember that story of his childhood when his family traveled to Jerusalem for Passover. And when they started home, they couldn't find Jesus because he was in the temple preaching. And this seems very traditional in some ways, because today children in the Jewish faith have their mitzvah at 13. It's an important time, 12, 13 years old. And I remember when I was 12 years old reading a book, thinking someone needs to say these things to the congregation that I was reading. And I thought, why not me? So I asked. And lo and behold, they gave me a chance. And as I stood up there that first time, something clicked. And here I am today, almost 30 years later. And I will say, still feeling like I'm in preparation. I'm not saying I'm Jesus. I will say it took me a long time to get here, though. I will also add that I've been back to the wilderness many times since. In March 2013, I stood in front of this congregation, having just finished the Stepping Stones process, in the midst of wilderness living, spiritually, not physically. I was homeless. And Stacy gave me the oath of office. She was the chair of membership at this time, and she told everyone that day that I was going to bring my experience to the congregation, and since that day, I have made the commitment to do so. It's why I stand before you now. But see, my commitment isn't that big when I think of David Morgan, who was already here. When I think of Stacy, who helped bring in 2 new members today, brought me in all those years ago. In fact, I can even say that Annabelle was here before me, showing her commitment to us today. And they aren't the only ones. They're just the ones that are currently in this room. They each made a commitment to this congregation and have put their time in over and over again, like so many others of you have. Like Patricia will this afternoon during our book study. Like the board members do when we call ad hoc meetings on Saturday mornings because there are some things we just don't get to during our normal board meetings. Being in a church is time, it's commitment, and it's love. So I think it may be important for me to tie all this together, which I commonly don't do, because I don't think of a sermon as a thesis defended by 3 points. I think of it more like a planet surrounded by satellites. The planet is the sermon, and the satellites are the way I address the planet or the surface. As a member of UUCJ, some of our most rewarding relationships are with our pets. Yes, we have principles about the web of all creation. However, with us, it tends to go deeper. With an annual blessing of the annuals that if we do not do, we will hear from Natalie that we have not done. And if you've never attended that service or seen how Jim leads that service as the Pope of Animal Blessing, I really encourage you to make sure that you are there for that next time. With our, but we hear about each other's animals. And before COVID, we gathered together. There is actually a gathering of, I am going to say, liberal religious animals that gets together on Sunday afternoons that we often have to bend our schedules around. But it's very similar to a church. And then hearing when I go to the animal shelter to adopt a new pet, that the person who keeps that shelter was excited that we were bringing a new Unitarian Universalist animal into the fold because she knows us personally. Because we are not just Unitarian Universalists. Our pets are too. UUCJ pet owners understand commitment. They understand the commitment it takes to own pets. We know that it isn't about fun as much as it's about making life better for us and for them. Because our pets make us better as we help make their lives better. Many people don't think about that preparation needed when they make their commitment. They just think it'd be fun to have a dog, which is why shelters tend to get a lot of new donations after Christmas. We know better than that. We know better than the betrayal of taking them back, of leaving them on the side of the road because we made a mistake getting them. We do not take animals until we are ready to make a commitment to them. And when we have to take them out and even then, we still have to take them out during the rain. And especially, we know that commitment when we have to let them go. Many people think joining a church is a simple thing that can be done and undone just as quickly. But for us, that feels, to me, like taking a dog back to the shelter. Because ministry involves patience, time, and planning. Like I said, 30 years of planning for 3 years of ministry. And finally, this church family and anyone with family knows that family does not always get along. But when we choose family, we understand that there may be disagreements among us, but the mission is bigger than our disagreement. Because church is about doing something to make the lives of others better. That is why you use focus on covenant, on our relationships. Because to build relationships that matter takes time, focus, and preparation. Knowing that it may be tough, but that's okay. Because we're bigger than our toughness and more committed than a whim. In the immortal words of Tom Petty, you can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I'll stand my ground and I won't back down. And as I close, I want to say this. Thank you to all of our members, to those who understand that membership is more than just showing up on Sunday, to those who understand that membership is more than just coming in to sing a song and leave. Thank you for the years of service you've given. Thank you to the new members who join our family today. And thank you for taking a chance on this guy. For all those years ago, when Stacy didn't just let me sign the book, she made me go through stepping stones. And she reminded me that when I signed that paper, I signed it with expectation. To be part of this family, to commit my time. And because of my skill set, I knew that meant I was committing my voice. This has been the greatest opportunity because people like David come here on a Sunday morning and we figure all this out, even when mics go out halfway through service. Because Annabelle is willing to sit at the piano. Because Stacy comes in on any of the mornings that I ask her to help, knowing that she will also be giving that time to board work. In fact, Evelyn and Patrick have already committed so much to this congregation before even taking a new member class. Thank you all so much. And please, if you are not a member, talk to us. If you would like to go on this journey that is Unitarian Universalism, come on, let's go. We can talk about what that means later. But let me tell you, it has more to do with what it means every day. So we thank you, we love you, and we hope the future the best for those of you who are leaving us, and for those of you who are just coming, and those of you somewhere between. Having said that, I bring back Annabelle to close us in song. Oh, I can do that too. Hey, I figure while I'm standing here, I'll extinguish the chalice. As extinguishing the chalice, I will remind you that there is a book study starting this afternoon, our second part of anti-racism, and I will extinguish the chalice by saying the words we've always said. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fires of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.